TGI Fridays, or Thank God It's Fridays, or Thank Goodness It's Fridays. No matter what you decide to call it, it seems there's no goodness or thanking going on at the once esteemed institution. And this is its fault. With allegations of fraud, it looks like this joint that brought people together is towing the path of being asunder. Recent consumer trends show that TGI Fridays is turning to TGI gone. But when the business started, you couldn't have predicted this would be its future. We mean, how can a business designed to bring singles together just become a place not many people want to go? How did the founder, Alan Stillman's vision go down the drain? Alan Stillman was not a businessman, and he certainly didn't have any form of experience in the fast-paced fast food industry in the United States. But Alan was a visionary. No, not a business visionary. The business was just a byproduct of the man's real intention. You see, Alan just wanted to get the girls, and he had a type too. Due to the area he lived in New York at the time, which was at 63rd Street between 1st and York, he had a thing for airline stewardesses, fashion models, and secretaries. Okay, he had many types, but the problem was he couldn't woo any of these women. Why? He couldn't meet them. And he wasn't the only one. The alternative for Alan and other single guys to meet women was to attend organized cocktail parties that people hosted in their private spaces. But to attend, they had to get invited, and invitations were in short supply. There was no business that catered expressly to the interests of single people. There were bars and other like establishments, but they were feared with beer-chugging men. These weren't exactly places a woman would feel safe. Alan wouldn't have this. But the problem was, there was no solution unless someone decided to provide one. Then he stepped up. If he was going to get a woman to marry, he had to do this. He had to create a place for single people. But how would Alan do it when he didn't have any money? And if you'd like to learn about the history of your favorite eateries, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. Alan had $5,000, but it wasn't enough. He needed help, so he approached his mother for a $5,000 loan and bought a bar he usually patronized, the Good Tavern, which sat at the corner of 63rd Street and 1st Avenue in Manhattan. The founder renamed the bar TGI Fridays, which was short for the expression, "Thank God It's Friday," a popular expression he heard when he was back at Bucknell University. From thinking there was no public place for people between, say, 23 and 37 years old to meet, the founder successfully recreated the organized private cocktail parties. Alan was brilliant with his decor choice. He chose to paint the exterior with stripes using a red and white striped paint, and for the interior, he went all out. He had American-made imitation Tiffany lamps, with the walls dotted with antique memorabilia. For the floors, Alan had wooden floors and got bentwood chairs for his customers to sit on. His tables had striped tablecloths like the exterior, and the bar area had brass rails and stained glass. In summary, the joint was cool, and it was what brought business to it. Oh, we almost forgot to mention one of the place's main attractions, apart from the food, the ladies, and the decor. Alan hired beefcakes. If you are familiar with the scene in the vintage era of Hollywood, you already know the meaning of this word. But if you aren't, we mean Alan hired handsome, athletic men who wore form-fitting red and white striped server suits. These men provided an excuse for customers who wanted to feed their eyes to visit. You might be wondering why we aren't focusing on the food. During the time the business opened, the food was good, but it wasn't anything special. The founder had no idea what he was doing. He didn't know the kind of food he should give his customers, but he insisted that he would serve good French fries and hamburgers. His lack of knowledge did work for the business, as it prevented the opportunity for growth and evolution. The man kept making things up as he went along. The business was a hit. It had stewardesses that lived in the apartment building next door that formed a steady clientele, and it also made its way into national magazines. It became a sensation to the point that people began to form lines outside the business. The lines began to get out of hand, or should we say, people began to get out of line. So, the founder used ropes to create a waiting area for those on the line. Then he got doormen to handle the eager crowds. Soon, competition came. Some opened directly across the street, but the crowd at TGI Fridays wasn't reducing. Instead, the restaurant began to expand. The restaurant started to franchise 2 years after its creation. The first franchise location was in Memphis, Tennessee, at the Overton Square District. In 1971, the business expanded to the Midwest cities when Daniel R. Scott Scoggin got the right to open franchises in 8 major Midwest cities. TGI Fridays took its evolution to another level in 1972 when Scoggin created a new version of the store in Dallas. The new store had a raised square bar and multi-level dining, which raised the business's level as sales in Dallas were on a different level. As a result, Stillman began to copy the Dallas model and formed TGI Fridays Inc., with Scoggin becoming the CEO. While switching to Dallas opened a pathway to the southern states and ultimately more profits, it changed the business model. From being a singles joint, the business became a place for families to dine, and this would be a cause for the decline of the company. But at that point, it was basking in its profits. The business had a new type of store, which had 200 seats, and a new addition to the menu, which included potato skins. All of TGI Fridays' progress wasn't going unnoticed, and in 1975, Stillman got an offer he couldn't resist. He sold his business to Carlson Companies. Alan had left the company to form other ventures, but kept the first store. He had finally achieved his aim. He had gotten married. While Stillman didn't stay still, Scoggin continued as CEO and finalized the sale of his part of the business in 1980. The new owners meant business, and they made one of the business's best discoveries, the flair bartending. But they didn't plan it. They only got it by accident when one of the store's bartenders, John Mescal, got creative in the 80s. Mescal was performing tricks that many customers liked. To cash in on this, the business had Mescal make a video, which the company gave all the other bartenders. Scoggin still remained with the business after selling his stake and continued to serve as the CEO. He helped the business go international in the 80s after he helped raise money by the company going public. However, Scoggin would only witness the opening of the UK store through Whitbread plc as the franchise owner as he left the company in 1986. The company continued to change its ideals after Scoggins left by going private and making sure it widened its customer base and put less focus on alcohol. Maybe its less emphasis on alcohol was what led to one of their biggest scandals. Before then, they stuck with quality. However, they didn't always do this, which is one reason the business headed slowly to unprofitability. Speaking of unprofitability, the chain began to see a reduction in sales for several years, and in 2017, it saw a 5.1% sales decline. Part of this is its fault. As profitable as it was for the business at the time, its decision to become a family restaurant stole a big part of its identity, and it lost its cool factor. The company focused less on alcohol, which was one of its major attractions in the first place. They even stopped maintaining the hip decor that their customers loved, which, when mixed with a reduction in food quality, makes for a bad combo. The business saw its failings and tried to fix it, so it changed its decor in 2005, and even the striped uniforms of its servers. It also attempted to make its food options look more enticing, so it began a promotion that allowed people to have as much as an appetizer as they wanted. While this was fun initially, it became problematic when the business made it a permanent part of its menu. When it did that, the quality of those appetizers went through the drain. Speaking of drains, the company tried to improve the quality of its meals by introducing new menu items, but unfortunately, customers weren't buzzing about the taste. There was one thing that customers buzzed for, but it wasn't the good kind of buzzing. It turned out that the business had been selling cheap alcohol to its customers and disguising it like the real deal. As if that's not bad enough, the brand allegedly fraudulently charged the price of the expensive alcohol, so customers paid more for fake alcohol. Pair this with the business's poor food quality, and you can understand why sales continued to drop. Eventually, Sentinel Capital Partners and Tri-Artisan Capital Partners bought the chain in 2014. Before Tri-Artisan bought out Sentinel's remaining stake in 2019. Alan Stillman created his business to meet single women and got more than he bargained for, a business empire. The man got the girl and also got rich when he ran the business before eventually selling it off when it was doing well. So should he have held on to the business longer? Or was he right to sell?